Hi, my name is Mike Berry. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Technology for Montpelier Roxbury Public Schools, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about language immersion. Montpelier Roxbury Public Schools is about to embark on a study of sorts about language immersion and the possibility of having a program in the Montpelier Roxbury Public Schools. I'm going to give you an example of what language immersion means, and then I'm going to walk through a slideshow of information about the process and what we're about to do. So a language immersion classroom is a classroom in which students receive their instruction in that foreign language. So Chittenden East has a Spanish immersion program currently. As far as I know, they're the only program in the state that's doing this. And so in their kindergarten classroom, students come in and they are immersed in Spanish for the day, receiving their mathematics instruction in Spanish, their reading instruction in Spanish, their social studies, science, all of those things are conducted in Spanish. They interact with students in the rest of the school just like any other classroom would, but their core instructional content is in that foreign language, in their case Spanish. And the same for a first grade classroom that they have. As those grades go up, the amount of full immersion decreases slightly. So once they get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, it might be 80-20. So 80% of the instruction would be given in Spanish and 20% would be given in English, and decrease. And that's based on research around how to develop these programs. Generally speaking, language immersion programs phase out around 5th grade, and that's when foreign language instruction starts in school systems. And so that's what we would be looking at in terms of Montpelier Roxbury and what makes sense. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk through a slideshow and basically share some of the process and the information. I'm doing this video because this time of year is really hard for people to attend events and to get to meetings and things like that. So hopefully this will help explain some of the process. And if anyone has any questions at any point, my contact information is below in the description. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk. I want to hear ideas, suggestions, all those things. So be sure to do that. So why immersion? Language immersion has been researched quite a bit in the academic world and instruction and education. You can find a lot of research about this, but essentially it all says the same thing, that an immersive learning environment is incredibly impactful on the way that the brain learns language, but also then learns to take in information in general. Students who participate in a language immersion program, not only are they dual fluent, but they also have a new way of learning that makes them a little more flexible, a little more plasticity in their brain around taking in information and how they achieve that. So there's that component. There's being bilingual. There's the socio-cultural competencies that come with this, learning about a different culture, a different language, being immersed in that, having the gift of being immersed in that. There's global connections and communication and all those things that we're dealing with in society today that make this a benefit for students. A lot of the research shows that students that are in these programs end up in the top 1-2% of their academic studies every time. It's pretty impressive. My story. So a little bit about me. So my role in this process will be to facilitate a committee of stakeholders. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But to give some background on my experience with language immersion, I think it's important to know what I've been through and what I've experienced. So in my previous role, I was the Director of Curriculum, Communication, and Innovation in Chittenden East. And when I began in that position, it was my responsibility to continue the work that a whole group of people had done around language immersion and bringing it to Chittenden East. Part of that responsibility was to research other programs and ask some tough questions about programs, of existing programs in the nation. And the other part of it was eventually to implement the first year and also continue the work into the second year. And in that process, there were a lot of people that did a lot of work. I don't want to pretend that I did that work. Vicki Graff, the principal at Jericho Elementary School, was an integral part. There was a committee of folks. We had parent volunteers. There was an army of people working on this. And through that process, I learned a lot about where schools and districts can get hung up. And I'll give you an example. This is an exercise in sustainability. This is a 5-year commitment for students, families, and for the school district. So early on in the early stages of development, it seemed very easy for us to get stuck on things that weren't really sustainable. For example, you really want to consider what types of curricular materials are available out there. You don't want to find out, oh, it's really difficult to get books in this language or texts or high quality texts or things like that. So there were some sustainability elements that we didn't consider early on that I think are important to bring to that. And that's just one example of things that were really helpful. And I think that I can bring that to the committee and to the group and bring that experience and just be able to point out what we've already learned so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel as we're doing this process. So that's my story. So what are we looking at? So the Center for Applied Linguistics, which was an organization that we partnered with in Chittenden that has been invaluable in that work, has some guiding principles of which we should really focus our questioning and our development on. This is thinking of how are we going to build this system. So one being program structure. What does it look like? How does it function? What is it doing? The curriculum. How does it align with our instructional curriculum and our values and our standards and all of those things? Very important work to do before you start the program. Instruction. What does instruction look like? Assessment and accountability, staffing, professional development, family and community, and support and resources. These are all really important structures and pillars to focus on. We actually have the opportunity to have Cal come here and work with us through this process, so we're pretty excited about that. The committee. So we will be forming a committee. We're looking for stakeholders from many different groups in our learning community. There'll be a link below for folks that are interested in being a member of the committee. Generally speaking, I think that the commitment will be about one meeting per month between now and December. Now, next school year. Now, in between that, there may be some research, there may be some questions, there may be some assignments to go and interview folks or call people and ask questions, things like that. But generally speaking, once a month between now and December. And the goal of the committee is to come out with a recommendation for the superintendent. The recommendation may be to proceed with a language immersion program. Maybe we need more time to ask some more questions. It's really up to the committee at that point. We're looking for a small group because this committee needs to be pretty nimble. We're probably going to do some site visits. We're going to have a lot of phone calls, things like that. We want to be able to meet without trying to organize too large a group. So if you're interested, please fill out the form. If you have questions, just give me a call or send me an email, and I can certainly work to answer that. And that's the work that we're doing. We're pretty excited about it. It's an amazing thing to be looking at. But again, just a couple of things. We are going to be super transparent about this. There's a web page that we've developed for the committee so that all the information from the meetings will be available to anybody. If you have questions or would like to meet with me or talk with me, I'm happy to do that. I want to hear ideas. I want to hear questions. I want to hear concerns. Anything like that, we're going to be super transparent. And we're excited to get going. So if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, very excited about this process. More information to come. Thank you.